I got the thumbs up. So I'll call this regular open council meeting up today, June 16th to order. Just to remind folks that there's a live audio video feed being broadcast and it's recorded via Zoom and is available on the Town of Golden YouTube page. And also for the public here to let you know that Councillor Hambrook and Councillor Dale are attending online. And we have the rest of council around the table here. For thousands of years, the abundance that the earth's lands, waters provide us to live, work, and play is due to the ecological wisdom, stewardship, and reciprocal relationship that the world's first peoples have lived and live today. Begin by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the shared ancestral territory of the Ktunaxa and the Secwepemc people. Golden is also home to the Métis Nation Columbia River Society and other diverse Indigenous heritage. We're grateful to have the opportunity to live, work, and play in this territory. Ms. Seville, I see we have one late item.
That is correct. There is one late item,
Which department did that come from, please?
That would be our Chief Administrative Officer, and just requires a simple majority.
Thank you for that. Council, with that note, moving the adoption of the meeting agenda as amended. Councilor Routley?
I'll second.
Okay. So Councilor Routley, Councilor Manuel? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. And now the meeting of the agenda as amended. We'll go with Councilor Routley, Councilor Guio, she beat you. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. So council, we also have the minutes of the last regular open council meeting, which was held June 2nd. Looking for a mover of those minutes. Councilor Manuel, second by Councilor Routley. Council, any errors or omissions in those minutes? Seeing, hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. And council, is there any business arising from those minutes that's not going to be dealt with in the agenda today? Seeing, hearing none, we'll move on to delegations and presentations. And the first one up is Kootenai Conservation Program. And we have Juliette Craig. Welcome. Welcome.
Me as a delegation today. I really appreciate your time. My name's Juliette Craig and I'm the program director for the Kootenai Conservation Program. And the Kootenai Conservation Program works in the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Ktunaxa, Secwepemc, Syilx, and Sinixt nations who have stewarded this land, water, and all living things since time immemorial. And today I'd like to talk to you about about local conservation funds and what they are and how they work, some of their benefits, how they're established, and what the latest market research polling results have told us. So if you aren't aware, Kootenai Conservation Program is a partnership. We have over 95 partners, including local, provincial, and federal governments, First Nations, and a broad range of nonprofit societies from rod and gun clubs, land trusts, stewardship groups, and others, as well as educational institutions and agricultural producers. And we work towards conservation in the region. Our mandate is to coordinate and facilitate landscape level and local conservation efforts focusing on private lands, to share conservation knowledge and expertise, and to build support and resources for this effort. And one of our roles has been, and our successes has been, to work with local governments to establish local conservation funds in the Kootenays and Columbia. So local conservation funds are a local government service. They create a dedicated fund for conservation projects that organizations and First Nations can apply to undertake conservation projects in the region. They're based on a parcel or a property tax, and these projects support local priorities. And the funds that are generated are used within the service area that they're collected. So the very first fund in Canada's history was established just south of here with the Regional District of East Kootenay in 2008, where KCP worked with the RDEK to scope out this idea. And then the RDEK brought it to referendum in 2008, and taxpayers voted to pay a $20 per parcel per year tax into a dedicated fund for conservation projects. And it was the first of its kind in Canada's history. No one quite knew if and how it would work. It was established with a 10-year sunset clause. And before 2018, councillors voted to, regional district representatives voted to remove the sunset clause. And it's been considered a great success in the Columbia Valley and has been a model and been established in 3 other regional districts in BC. And many other local governments are now looking at this service and seeing the benefits of it. So it works like any other local government service. It shows up as a tax requisition, as a parcel tax, like other local government services. And then those funds are put into a dedicated pot within the regional district for the local conservation fund. It's a pooled fund. So in the Columbia Valley, it includes 3 municipalities, Canal Flats, Invermere, and Radium, as well as electoral areas F and G. It all goes into a single pot, and that is distributed as projects come in. So there's no geographic distribution to the funds, except that the local government decision makers have a say in that. Each municipality and electoral area has 1 seat at the decision-making table on how the funds are spent. So KCP works in tandem with the local government. So we have an agreement for 9% of the requisition to provide administrative support for the service. We do a call for proposals, and then nonprofits and First Nations can apply for that funding. We host a technical review committee that's approved by the regional district. They are made up of local volunteer experts who review the proposals, rank them, and provide their technical expertise. And then we package those recommendations and provide them to the elected officials who ultimately decide which of the projects to fund. So like many other grants, it has this granting process, and KCP does the advertisements both in print and email, and as much as we can get the word out, and collate those proposals and follow up on the reporting structure, to make sure that the deliverables are being met, and then report that out to the local government. So it really does relieve the administrative burden from the RDEK. And we work very closely as much as we can. We bring the elected officials out on the ground to see the projects, and it's a very collaborative effort in this service. So there are many different projects that have been funded by this service since 2008, and we have a full array on our website at kootenayconservation.ca. And I'll just highlight a few that may be of interest to the town of Golden. So the fund has supported projects that aim to reduce human wildlife impact by providing a 50-50 cost share program with landowners for electric fencing in key grizzly bear habitats that not only protects fruit trees and livestock, but also provides safe passage for grizzly bears. The fund supported dry forest restoration, which provides ecological support for dry forest ecosystems, as well as reduces potential wildfire risk to communities. It supported a number of wetland habitat restoration projects, which again supports important habitats for a number of bird and wildlife species in the area, as well as providing climate resilience, which is what wetlands really provide in terms of climate refugia. Funds have been used to support invasive plant control projects and outreach projects to work with landowners who have high priority invasive species on their properties, and also projects that help landowners create pollinator meadows in their backyards. And we know pollinators are important for native plants and habitats, as well as agricultural production and food security. The funds are also used for land acquisition projects by land trusts to acquire and conserve really important places on the landscape, including wildlife corridors and wildlife habitats, as well as cultural sites and sites of other significance. And funds have been used for water monitoring projects, both quantity and quality of water, which provides real-time information for local governments to make decisions about water. Funds have been used to support wildlife habitat projects, for example, and somebody was mentioning insect control projects that provide roost opportunities for both bats and swallows, which are important consumers of flying insects. And the funds have supported a unique initiative called Farmland Advantage that creates contracts with farmers who undertake extraordinary stewardship measures on their properties, and they're compensated for those ecosystem services that their farms provide. So there's a lot of different projects, and I think what residents really appreciate about the fund is that their money goes into local projects that provide local support for high priority local priorities. And over time, although each individual project may be relatively small, over time, the impacts have added up. So these are the projects that have occurred between 2010, when the first projects hit the ground, and 2025. It also has really significant economic benefits. So since 2008, the Columbia Valley Local Conservation Fund has generated $3.2 million. And that's leveraged over 28 million in additional cash and in-kind support. So every $20 that a resident has paid in a parcel tax has generated an additional $175 in leveraged cash and in-kind, for a result of 6 to 7 times the return on investment of that fund. And this funding goes to support local contractors and businesses and materials and supplies and other economic benefits to the region. And because the fund is supporting local priorities and local projects, it really can help support local government priorities in terms of sustainability or climate resilience as well. So I've given you a bit of information about what a local conservation fund is and how it works. And some of the benefits, and I'll end with how these funds are established. So there's 5 key steps that we've seen over time for establishing this service, and I brought booklets if people would like those, as well as little pamphlets, and there's lots of information online. So I'll briefly go over each of these steps. So the first step is engaging with local governments like yourself to provide information on what this service is, how it works, some of the benefits, both to local government elected officials, as well as community organizations and representatives of communities. And the second step that we've done every time, so this has gone to referendum in the Kootenay region 3 times, in 2008, in the Columbia Valley, 2014 with the RDCK, and 2022 in the Slocan Valley to expand the RDCK fund. Prior to every time, we've engaged an arm's length market research polling company to determine where there's constituent support for this service. So this year we engaged the Mustel Group from January to April, and they're just finishing the report. It should be available at the end of this week, but we do have the preliminary results. And for the first time this time, we also included the CSRD Area A and Golden in our polling. So previously we've only polled in the RDEK and RDCK. So this was an interesting addition. This area is part of our service area. And so the town of Golden and CSRD Area A are one of the areas polled. And we asked the polling consists of a number of questions, but 3 are really critical. Do you support the idea of the fund? And that usually gets high support. Would you yourself be willing to pay? That gets a little lower. And then, do you believe that this should be a mandatory levy? And that's a little bit lower. So the CSRD came out on top with, do you support the idea of this fund? Note that the areas that are already in the service were not polled, because we know they support the service, they voted for it. So 86% of residents that were polled in the CSRD Area A and Golden support the idea of this service, the highest in the whole region. Are you likely to contribute? And that's 68%. Again, the highest is in this region from our KCP service area. And the critical question, do you support this being a mandatory levy? And that has 61% support. So the majority of residents in this area support this service. When we did this polling but prior to 2022, it was actually done in 2018, and then the pandemic hit and we kind of paused this work. The Slocan Valley came out as 67% in support on that last question. And when it went to referendum in 2022, the result was 66% in support. So this market research polling appears to really reflect what residents believe and think, and it's weighted to gender and home ownership and education, all of those things. So that was step one, is outreach. Step two, the market research polling. Step three, assembling a leadership team if there is interest in pursuing this from diverse perspectives and backgrounds to help share information about the service. Step four, identifying a process for determining public support. So in the Kootenays, it's been done by referendum mostly. In the Okanagan, the alternative approval process has been used, and we use that or the RDCK used that in one electoral area as well. That's where the local government advertises their intention to establish this service. And if less than 10% of the electorate writes in opposition, it can be assumed to have public support. Municipalities have a third option of council resolution. So that could be done as well. And then there's the work of establishing the service, and we have models and information for the terms of reference, the technical review committee, the bylaw language, all of that exists because this has been done elsewhere. It is really important, though, that if the town of Golden was interested in the service, that the CSRD electoral area A is also interested, because it's kind of a pooled system and it wouldn't really work in a municipality without the other area. However, it has worked in the West Kootenay to have the electoral area and not the municipality, so it can work that way. So in summary, the Local Conservation Fund is a local government service. It creates a dedicated fund for conservation. It's an existing service in 4 different regional districts of the province, and many others are looking at this as being a very successful way to move values forward. It has many benefits, both economic and conservation values, and that help support quality of life for residents. And the market research polling results indicate the majority of citizens in the town of Golden and CSRD electoral area A would support this service. So as I mentioned, I've got lots of information. I don't know if I should pass it to Carrie or pass them around. There's booklets and little pamphlets. And I've also got these, not about local conservation funds, but the variety of organizations operating in the Golden area who have conservation and stewardship information in the region. And I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much, Juliet. Yeah, we'll get those packages to Carrie and we'll get them distributed.
Okay.
So as is typical of our delegations, presentations portion, council has the opportunity to ask questions of the presenter. If there's a desire of council to have staff do some follow-up research, gather some information, then that would happen at a subsequent council meeting. So council, any questions of Juliet in her presentation? Councilor Manuel?
Just curious, I know in our area, the local Rod and Gun Club has a significant positive impact on the environment. I'm just wondering if there are similar clubs involved in this organization or this movement. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. The Golden and District Rod and Gun Club is a partner of KCP. The Windermere and District Rod and Gun Club has successfully applied for Columbia Valley Local Conservation Fund funding, and so has the Golden Club in Dunburg, south of here. So definitely, they're both a partner in our partnership, as well as this type of fund would support some of the great work that they're doing in terms of wetland restoration or bighorn sheep monitoring or some of the other projects that they have.
Thank you.
Council, any other questions? Councilor Cooper?
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I just had a concern because you're talking about the RDK and we are CSRD. If funds are collected and they're going down to an RDK fund, or would we, it feels like we would be isolation on our own, not part of any, because we are a separate area. So to me, it seems like we already have Wild Site and we have the Rod and Gun Club that are doing such work, and our money wouldn't be populating the percentage wise other is because it's not part of that pool. Or how do you differentiate us, because we are a separate area and it seems like we're the only one in CSRD area. Everyone else's money is in RDK.
Yeah, so the RDEK service is entirely separate from the RDCK service. And this is a really interesting question you ask, because we our service area for the Kootenai Conservation Program includes Area A, but not the rest of CSRD. So it would be really interesting. So what we're proposing is Area A and Town of Golden would be its own service, but that there could be some kind of coordination between the Technical Review Committee or something like that. But the funds go only to the regional district where the requisition occurs. So I can't imagine CSRD and Golden funding going to the RDEK. That would be separate to this region. But the pooled service, I mean, is within the RDEK, 2 electoral areas and 3 municipalities are pooled. But the CSRD would be its own place. And
Entity.
its own entity, which is interesting because so many of the projects and the ecosystems really spread between the two. And I think that's why there's such support here, because residents from here have seen the value of this in the Columbia Valley. But if their project is north of Spillamachine, then they can't apply for the funds.
I think that would be my concern, because the money that's collected here would not be enough money to do projects on this side if we're not pooling our funds, because we are completely separated with funding models. So how would it actually support us within realistical, tangible projects that aren't being currently done by Wild Site and Rod and Gun Club? Like, I feel like we're separate, divided. So to me, I'm struggling to see how that connection and how this fund would support our actual area.
So I have a question that may help follow up on that. Have you guys done an assessment of the number of parcels in municipal and rural Golden and translated that into kind of a potential annual budget to see if there is in fact adequate dollars and cents to do some projects?
Yeah, I have relatively old data, but that's something I would love to ask the town of Golden about, because you would have the number of parcels. When I looked at the 2017 parcels that we saw and applied a $20 parcel tax, it would generate about 42,000 in Golden and about 58,000 in Area A. So a total of about 100,000. That's with a $20 parcel tax, knowing that there is some administration fee on that. So I would predict that somewhere around 85 to 90,000 of that would hit the ground. And there could be opportunities for a $25 parcel tax, for example, that would generate 125,000. So it is a smaller amount, and that's why there could be opportunities to share the Technical Review Committee, who has expertise in this whole region ecologically, but have a separate requisition. All the contracts, all the money goes between the local government and the proponent. KCP isn't involved in that. So the requisitions would go between the proponent and this area.
Any further follow-up, Councilor Cooper? Clear?
Yeah.
Councilor Guile?
Thank you for presentation. I do have a question. I'm kind of a nerd about the statistics. CSRD and Golden, when you were doing a survey, was it 51 for each area that you called, or is it just 51 total? 51 people to get those statistics.
Total. So
So-
we were, yeah.
So you called 51 people to get the 66% statistics. The only concern I really have is that there seems to be services that you provide that other levels of government are doing, like with regards to water monitoring and dry forest ecosystems, restoring dry forests. I worry that by us joining something like this, that we would be relieving other levels of responsibilities and taxing for it. And I have a problem with that. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
Please.
So in terms of the number of people polled, we relied on Mustel Group's wisdom on how to have an accurate representation of the population. And so they polled until they had it weighted for, as I mentioned, education, age bracket, those kind of things. So that's the number they provide has a margin of error attached to it. So that was the statistics, which I'll be able to provide the report hopefully next week. In terms of relieving government of its responsibility, provincial government, that is in the terms of reference. The project cannot relieve provincial government of their responsibility. So any projects that are done are projects that are not being done by the provincial government, such as wetland restoration or installing swallow boxes or some of the projects that local groups and clubs do. And there is debate in the technical review committee. If it feels like an application is relieving government of the responsibility, then they'll note that. Mhm.
Thank you for that. Any other comments, questions? Councilor Rodley?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Juliet, for the presentation. Yeah, I touched, when we were going through the fact that this is happening on private land, similar to the operation of Fire Smart, where, you know, that program exists, or existed, at least the funding, to support that on the private landscape and not relieving the province of its obligations to manage public landscape. And so appreciate that. The general sentiment is, like, I'm quite supportive of the concept. And I guess I guess I lost the question. Councillor Guillau's point on the stats, I had that, so thank you for the clarification there. Yeah, certainly supportive of the concept. Obviously, with the electoral area, you know, with my mind obviously goes to water conservation and water projects in general, fire, and how we can best manage for landscape disasters. So an opportunity to at least increase the self sustainability while not removing the province's obligations and the federal government's obligations within their landscapes as well, sounds like a great opportunity in my mind. So thank you again.
Thank you. Any other comments, council? Councilor Dale or Councilor Hamburg online there?
Nothing for me, no.
Thank you. Councilor Hamburg, you're okay, or?
Nothing from me, thanks.
Okay, council, thank you very much for the
Thank you so
presentation,
much
and
for the
look to
opportunity.
council if they want to set any direction or need any information from staff prior to this coming back at the next council meeting in the middle of July. The first thought I have is relative to the number of parcels. I mean, what would it take for staff to actually identify the number of parcels within the municipality? Is that a lot of staff work? Is that a little bit of staff work? Or is it a push of a button?
Internally for the town itself, it could be pretty easily done either through finance or a GIS system. We'd probably actually double check against both. For the regional district, that's out of our control.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you. So from my perspective, I'd like to translate that into numbers, into current numbers. It would good information for us, but also good information for KCP for future discussions, whatever those look like. So to that end, I would put forward a motion that we council direct staff to identify the number of parcels within the municipal footprint for the purposes of translating that into at $20 per parcel a budget type thing for this type of a concept. But much less words, Alicia, please. Simply amazing. Councillor Hamburg?
Yes, just a question for the presenters. Have you considered making a presentation to the Columbia Shuswap Regional District?
See it?
Yes, I'm meeting with Director Cathcart first, and then I'll get some insight from her. We had aimed to have the market research polling done a year and a half ago, but couldn't find the funding, and the funding only came in December. So we realized we've missed the electoral cycle, and so there could be a new directors in the new year as well as here. And so I'm just going to get advice on when is the best timing. Should we do an informational session now and then a new session, a new delegation in January? But absolutely.
Okay, and there's a motion that's not quite on the floor yet. It needs a seconder. Counselor Robertley seconding that. Going to Counselor Manuel speaking to the motion.
I just wanted to ask, is one of your priorities also involve climate change? In terms of the in terms of the programs and the effects?
Yes, the actual service is based on what people voted for in the referendum. And so that's generally wildlife, habitat, and water. But climate resilience is part of that. Wetland restoration and habitat is part of that. And climate resilience is part of a lot of the projects support that.
Thank you.
Is there anything else, Council? Councilor Cooper?
Currently at this time, I'm not really in favor of going to a municipal tax. Just due to the fact of where the alignments are and where it falls. And I feel like we do have other areas of Wild Site and the Rod and Gun Club that are working in this area. So for me, I'm sorry, I'm not in favor of putting a taxation forward for it at this time.
Thank you. Anybody else speaking to the motion? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion? Counselor Hambrick, Counselor Dale,
Yep, just waiting to vote.
okay, Counselor Hambrick, we have you voted in favor. Counselor Dale, just for the record.
Against?
Okay, all those opposed? Counselor Dale and Counselor Cooper, and want that recorded for the minutes? Okay, thank you. The motion is passed. So staff will do that homework and then bring that information back to council at a subsequent council meeting. And hopefully, from my perspective, hopefully it's push of a couple buttons and the information is available as opposed to a bunch of work. Thank you for that. Thank you very much for your presentation. So with that, we go into item 6B, which is the Golden Food Bank and Local Food Matters, and we have Monica D and Christelle. We have the tag team.
Okay, hi everybody. My name is Monica D, Executive Director of the Golden Food Bank, and Christelle Viltier, Executive Director from Local Food Matters, here to talk to you about local government investment in community food security this afternoon. We wanted to revisit this graphic that we have shown you a couple of times just as a touch point to the strategic framework that's guiding the food security work of our two organizations. So the Golden Food Bank holds the household food insecurity piece, addressing emergency and crisis food situations that arise out of the economic and social factors influencing people's ability to access adequate food. And Local Food Matters holds the community food system lens, looking at long-term food system resilience and our community's ability to feed itself in the face of unforeseen and various circumstances. So last year, we appeared here requesting a 3-year investment into community food security of $130,000 annually, of which 1 year was approved. Both organizations have included impact reports along with this presentation detailing the various impacts of that investment into our community, and we'll touch on them at high level here. I provided a separate document with a progress update on the Farm Hub initiative, and there's detailed notes in that document. But essentially, we're at a point with this initiative where we have a refined operational business plan. We have a revenue model and a go-to-market strategy, a brand package. We have supply chains in place, both with new and existing hyperlocal producers, as well as regional food hubs. And we've got restaurant partnerships in place for a wholesale pilot and basically an enterprise that's ready to launch without a site to land on. We have a deposit paid on the containerized cold storage units and additional funding mobilized for that purchase, although it expires at the end of this month. That said, we continue to maintain strong relationships with the Columbia Basin Trust, who is interested in supporting this project in various and yet undefined ways. In March, this council approved our request to examine the feasibility of siting these containers at the Golden Food Bank. And through that process, Local Food Matters engaged Peak Construction to provide a work plan and an estimate for installing these containers on the west side of the food bank garden site. An installation at this site, including the cladding and roofing to meet required aesthetics, brought the total project costs up to over $350,000. The connection to utilities at this location is complex and expensive, with a pad transformer upgrade required, long runs, and significant disruption to the Golden Food Bank building as utilities are connected. And the site is further constrained in a number of ways, including limited truck access, no room to expand or grow, and ultimately our activities in this neighborhood would cause disruption to other users. So for all of these reasons, Local Food Matters has determined that this site is not suitable for our proposed purpose. We believe that at this point in the journey of this initiative, citing food storage within municipal boundaries merits a full audit of community food warehousing needs, including the food bank, local food processors and producers, and then a commitment on the part of Local Food Matters, local government, and funders to the scaling of this infrastructure to meet those needs. As there has been no municipal land identified as suitable and available for food warehousing, Local Food Matters proposes exploring the possibility of industrial land purchase for this purpose. Meanwhile, the scale and design of the containerized cold storage remains relevant in terms of operationalizing local food aggregation and distribution in the immediate or short term in a low overhead model that ultimately allows operations to scale before the implementation of a full warehouse build. And it also remains relevant in an on-farm context as discussions around community farms and agricultural land trusts evolve. Oh, there was look at that, there was a slide. I apologize, there was an extra in there.
Okay. So Golden Food Bank has received economic opportunity funds since 2024. So I want to start by saying thank you for that very valuable support and how this funding was impactful. So first, we were able to support local producers and keep the food dollars circulating within our local economy. By the fall of 2026, we will have purchased $35,000 of fresh produce and meats from 10 local producers, such as Patty's, Greenhouse, Evie's Garden, Golden Acres, and so on. And because the Golden Food Bank relies heavily on donations to operate, we generally try to source the least expensive items. So with the EOF, we have greater capacity to purchase locally. Second, the funding helped to increase access to healthy, nutritious food for residents. So our emergency food hamper program relies on recovered food, especially for perishable items, and the availability of recovered food can fluctuate throughout the year. So this funding has allowed us to consistently provide fresh, nutritious food such as local produce and meat in our hampers. And then thirdly, a portion of the EOF funds has supported wages and administrative costs associated with delivering our food access programs. Volunteers are a very important part of the Golden Food Bank. They save so much on staffing costs, but to keep operations running smoothly and sustainably, it requires dedicated staff to coordinate food purchasing, program delivery, partnerships, reporting, and daily operations. So overall, the EOF funds have enabled us to support local businesses, strengthen our local food system, reduce barriers to accessing healthy food, and improve food security for residents in Golden and Area A. So this slide, you've seen some of these numbers because I just updated you not too long ago. So this is just a reminder of the larger trend that we are seeing. Across BC and Canada, the message is consistent. Demand for food bank services continues to grow as the cost of essentials such as food, housing, and transportation increases. We are seeing this trend locally as well. So we saw a 266% increase in visits since 2020. And with increasing costs of essentials and over 40% of community members not making a living wage of $27.80, demand for food bank services likely to continue to grow. Unfortunately, I made a little typo in this slide here. So you can change that to 2780. We're also seeing an increase in the number of meal kits that we're selling. So through a partnership with Better at Home for seniors, this year the Golden Food Bank will provide an additional 700 meal kits in 2026. So as of May 31st, meal kit sales are $2,300 ahead of the same period last year. So I'll give you a bit more info about the Affordable Meal Kit program and how it supports our local food system, as well as the Golden Food Bank. So it creates additional opportunities to purchase and showcase local ingredients. Because the program is open to everyone, it helps reduce stigma associated with accessing food support. It provides an affordable option for people experiencing lower levels of food insecurity, so helping them access healthy meals and reducing pressure on the emergency hamper program. Also, importantly, the meal kit program is a cost recovery program, so it provides the Golden Food Bank with a more predictable and consistent source of revenue throughout the year. And this is helpful because the Golden Food Bank relies on donations, and most of those donations come in the last 2 months of the year. So it's nice to have that even flow of money coming in.
So we're here this afternoon to propose a renewed $136,000 investment into the community food security work of both of our organizations. With $100,000 of core operational support, Local Food Matters will continue to pursue critical food infrastructure and social enterprise opportunities, to strengthen our regional food connections, and to provide leadership on food security issues in the community.
And the food bank will continue to purchase from local producers and to integrate local food into our food access programs.
The Local Food Matters work plan for 2027 includes exploration and implementation of critical foods infrastructure, and that includes the possibility of a food warehousing needs assessment and a larger scope food hub business case, a community farm plan, and continued development of the Golden Farmers Market. We will continue to strengthen relationships and contribute to the development of a regional food distribution network in collaboration with the Food Shed distribution network based out of Armstrong, as well as the Columbia Valley Regional Food Hub, of which we are the steward here in Golden. And we will continue to play a leadership role in community food security, and that includes engaging with municipal emergency preparedness and coordination, especially in the development of a larger scope food hub and the role that it can play in disaster management and emergency response, as well as continued engagement with the regional district in advocating for agricultural land use and protection.
So this slide is just to show you highlight the value and the need for the EOF funds for the food access programs. So firstly, through the Local Food Matters Production Assessment, we know that 83% of growers indicated that they would like to expand their businesses. And this project helps to support that growth and provide year-round revenue streams for local producers. As food affordability continues to be a growing challenge, this project ensures that more residents can access healthy, nutritious foods while supporting local businesses and producers at the same time. And we're also seeing a continued growth in meal kit sales. They're currently ahead of where they were at last year. And this work is supported by the Columbia Valley Regional Food Hub. Members of the Food Hub about a half year ago identified the importance of strengthening existing food access program like ours that purchase from local growers. So the EOF funds allow us to invest in local producers, keep more food dollars within the local economy, and ensure that community members have greater access to fresh, nutritious, locally produced foods.
So the Golden Food Bank and Local Food Matters will continue to strategically collaborate on regional food system development through the Columbia Valley Regional Food Hub leadership table as we build capacity and collaborative solutions, engaging food system actors from Golden all the way down to Canal Flats. We will continue to pursue shared infrastructure solutions like the EV cargo van and food warehousing.
And the Golden Food Bank will continue to strategically collaborate on local food procurement and access, including through the Food Shed Procurement Network and the development of the meal kit program, as well as a future Harvest Share coupon program supporting access to local products on an online marketplace.
So we hope we've provided a comprehensive overview of the critical food security work that our organizations are engaged in, and we welcome any further questions or comments. Thank you for this time this afternoon.
Thank you very much, both of you, for the presentation. Councilor, any questions, queries with regards to the information we've just received? Council Cooper starts off.
Thank you for your presentation. I really appreciate your referencing that is economic development fundings and not taxation. So I appreciate you making that note. And I appreciate that you are purchasing locally and providing sustainability for our farmers, for our community. My question is surrounding the land purchase that you were looking at. Would this money from the EOF funds be used to purchase this land, or specifically because I understand what Monica's 35,000 is for, but sometimes I guess I'm unsure of what the 100,000 for the local foods matters, if it is directly for a purchasing lot, or if you can explain a little bit more of that.
Sure, absolutely. So no, it's not intended for the purchase of land. It's intended for the core operations of our organization. And so it's to continue the work that we have done to bring this infrastructure project to the point that it is, and to continue to pursue that. I think we would like to pursue a needs assessment for a larger warehouse, larger scope warehouse, as well as pursue a community farm plan, which arose as an action that would meet many of the gaps that we identified in the local food production assessment that we did last year. And we're also really wanting to focus on the Golden Farmers Market as a platform, and to enhance and grow that social enterprise as well. So, so that's the one, so we'll work on the critical food infrastructure and social enterprise component, aggregation and distribution specifically, and we'll continue with our regional foods network development. And there has been tremendous progress in the last 2 years, with emerging initiatives throughout the Shuswap and Okanagan, connecting hubs like the one that we're describing to a food source that comes regionally. And so that there's a lot of momentum and funding behind that work. It's a collaborative of organizations. And specifically also to improve local food access. So those are the initiatives that we are proposing in our work plan for 2027, and what the EOF funds would support by supporting the core operations of our organization.
Any follow-up, Council Cooper? Thank you for that. Council Gwill?
Thank you for your report. Just a couple of questions. You have a farm to cafeteria of $35,000, and that's expiring June 30th. And as well as you have a $68,000 deposit. Do you have the money to finish those units?
Yes, we have the support of the Columbia Basin Trust in principle on this project. And it's an open question, like this is evolving. We're in the middle of making decisions on what the best path forward will be. So I can't offer you right now what direction we will take. But the trust has given us informal support of installing this containerized facility, if that's the path we choose.
But if you can't purchase land by the end of June.
So if we cannot install these containers by the end of June, unlikely, we will lose that $35,000 that the trust has said that they're willing to compensate for.
And so you're looking for another $100,000 just to keep you guys running until you guys figure out what's going on, basically, right?
It's to continue the food security work of our organization. And so, yes, it's definitely centered around this infrastructure project, but it's for the leadership work that we're.
Does it meet the demands of F29 policy of the CSRD for?
It certainly contributes to the economic development of our municipality.
But does that money that you're going to be spending, the $100,000?
Well, so indirectly, in the sense that it is building the infrastructure and operations that will allow for the growth of our local food production capacity. So we have 2 operations, for example, that have said that they will begin producing in response to the available distribution channels that this project would open.
So, Council Gwill, if there was a resolution from the floor or subsequently that could possibly address those aspects you're talking about as far as meeting the criteria of F29, it would have it went through staff last year, so it
Just
may have.
kind of curious about like how much food production can grow with our climate here? Like, will it ever be sustainably run by itself, or is this something that's going to have to continue to get funding from EOF?
By this, do you mean local food matters or do you mean the infrastructure?
The actual production
The
of
actual,
food.
actual.
So the revenue model that we have developed identifies revenue neutrality by year 3 with this model of small scale. What we're also exploring at this point, and I can't say proposing because it's an evolving process, is the exploration of scaling this infrastructure to meet the full warehousing needs of food warehousing needs in the community. And in that version, it would be supporting more than just local producers, but also local food processors. So chefs, retailers, etc., caterers.
Any follow-up, Councilor Quill?
Just from your report, you do mention that this is also like some of the businesses outside of our regional district that is going to be supplying food. And they have like already a model where they deliver to restaurants. And so I'm trying to find the.
So the Food Shed in Armstrong, their mandate is to provide local food to community organizations. And so this is the development of essentially an alternative food network that's operating outside of normal corporate channels. And so their mandate is to support food banks, school districts, and organizations like ours that might be offering food box programs. So they do not do sales directly to restaurants. Yeah.
Patty's Greenhouse.
Oh, yeah, so we are definitely positioning this program to be collaborative as opposed to competitive. So we've been working extensively with Patty, and it would be in collaboration. We've had some communications with her about the potential of packing and delivering food on her behalf as her capacity is maxed.
Any follow-up, Councilor Guio? So my apologies. Anything else from council? Councilor Rodley?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you both for the presentation. I think I said it last year as well, but you know, it's certainly a whole of society impact considering everyone eats. But clearly some people aren't eating enough or as nutritious as possible. Yeah, it's been an unfortunate process with regard to the farm hub, but I am excited to see the refined business plan and revenue model, the projections for a 3-year break even, and then just the overarching impacts, not only for, I say, the producers or the processors, but then just the general affordability aspect. You know, that being able to offset, let's say, the input costs or of a meat producer, you know, that directly impacts the affordability of that product for families and for restaurants in the community. And then being able to then have a hub that supports their operations so growers can focus on growing and really build out their capacity is exciting. And it really is just that like macroeconomic, just like build out the supply so that eventually, hopefully, we can see those costs come down. You know, great work so far for both of you. It's challenging times with federal and provincial money also drying up. And so certainly supportive of this important work moving forward still.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? I'm looking to the councilors who haven't spoken yet, and then if not, we'll go to Council Cooper. Okay, Council Cooper.
Sorry, just made me think, so the 3-year model, has that, because you received EOF funding last year, so this would be the second year of the 3-year model, or this is the first year of a 3-year model? So where are we in this 3 years?
Well, I would say that we're not within that 3 years because it was identified very clearly last year that multi-year funding cannot be issued by the EOF. So
Yeah.
that was a reference just to how we approached you last year and where we were starting from this year.
Okay, so then follow-up would be like, so if there was, last year you received 100,000, this year you received 100,000, if next year the council approves another 100,000, that would be a 3-year. Would there be asks after that? Do you, I mean, crystal ball, like, I guess. But is that the model that you're looking at, just kind of for this year and potentially just next year? I just wanted to kind of understand the business plan.
Sure. So I don't think I'm going to have a very clear answer for you, but I have some information that'll help you understand how I'm seeing it. So this Farm Hub initiative that we are pursuing is a combined community impact initiative and revenue generating model. So the intent was that we would be able to generate some of the operating revenue required by our organization outside of the operation of this particular enterprise in order to offset the investment from local government that we have been requesting for. This is our 3rd year of requesting that investment. And I think the factor that will determine at what pace that initiative will be able to contribute revenue to our organizational operations will depend on whether we scale the infrastructure to meet community needs or keep it as this small scale containerized initiative that was initially proposed. And I don't have an answer at this time about what direction makes the most sense because I believe there's more information required, a needs assessment and a business plan for the larger model before we know.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
So my takeaway from that is that 3 years to get that initiative revenue neutral. And then after that, the hope is that it can contribute to operational costs of the greater local food matters budget.
That's the hope and intent.
Okay, thank you for that. So I'll have some fun. Excuse me, I'll have some fun here. Could I get you to speak, going to the Golden Food Bank? Can you speak to the cost recovery program development and expansion? So are we talking about the meal program?
Yeah, the affordable meal kit program. So we're hoping to sell them at the farmer's market. So if we can purchase local foods, we can create a signature meal kit that we sell at the farmer's market, and Local Food Matters will help us sell them. So that'll make it easier for us to do that. And we won't make them affordable. We'll sell them like at what they're really worth. And so hopefully that will bring in some more revenue.
So from my perspective, I like the meal kit initiative. I like that model. For me, it goes down the line of a social enterprise, being able to generate some positive revenue so you can fund your operations in whatever way you determine it should be used. The other question I had was with regards to the funding for the container at risk, and I'm hearing, yes, it's done. We're gonna lose that 35,000, but in fact, you have informal conversations with CBT staff about the opportunity of them back funding that.
I would say that's mostly correct. And I have not yet made the call to farm to cafeteria. I think I'm still holding out the hope that there's the opportunity to keep the funding without them being operational. That's the key. Like if it was supposed to be operational by the end of June, but I do have informal confirmation of support from the trust.
So the hope is we could take delivery of them and get them operational somewhere down the road. Okay, thank you for that. Just looking at my notes. Oh, yes, there was one question with regards to, oh, I can't find the slide, but anyways, there was a comment that, oh, there it is, that the meal kit sales are $2,300 ahead of the same period last year. I gotta be honest, that doesn't provide me with any information. It could have been, look, could have lost $2,300 last year and broken even this year.
Yeah, see, just saying that they're actually selling out almost every week. And because we have this new partnership with the Better at Home for seniors, so we have been selling more than last year.
So positive revenue?
They're affordable meal kits, so we're not selling them for what they're worth, like, the signature meal kits, but,
Okay, so that's
we're-
that distinction.
it's cost recovery and maybe making a bit more because we have the EUF funds and a couple other grants that help cover the wages of the operations support worker who
So,
puts these meal kits together.
so for me to put this into context, it's a senior signature meal kits that are gonna be the revenue generation
Yes.
and and
This is
could
the cost
impact
recovery.
support, okay, the affordable
Yeah.
meal kits.
Because there's so many reasons why we have the meal kit, so to help a different sector of people who are food insecure. So not as low as the ones who need the emergency food hamper, but they feel more comfortable coming to get the affordable meal kits.
I think it's a great program, and I will say we take advantage of it a number of times a week. But also that my wife appreciates it because she doesn't have to decide what we're gonna eat, because I don't care.
hear.
So, yeah,
It's very
I
helpful.
appreciate that angle for sure. Supplemental, Councilor Worley?
Thank you, Mayor. I realize I misspoke in the federal money, at least drying up. And of course, last week with the federal government's announcement on the National Food Security Strategy, a ton of cash coming out to support food security initiatives, specifically food banks and food hubs are also mentioned. If either of you had time to kind of go through and see what the possible impact, and we're seeing this leveraging already with the investment from EOF, and so what's the prospect looking like around the rollout of these dollars federally, whether some of them are apportionment, so you're guaranteed you're going to end up getting hopefully a little extra cash, not just a relabeling of what the monies are. And then otherwise, are there just other funds available that?
So when this
Hopefully.
announcement first came out a few months ago, I looked into it and a lot of it was for infrastructure. So, we've already been accessing money from CBT for small infrastructure grants. So we didn't really need that. That would be more something that you could access. So the grants that were coming out from the federal government weren't really going to be helpful for the Golden Food Bank.
What I found really interesting about that national food security strategy is that it echoes what Local Food Matters has been saying in the golden context, but at a national level. And so it's affirming that there is both a need and that the solutions that we're pursuing are on point. And specifically, there is identified funding for food hubs and food terminals and the need to support aggregation and distribution for regional or like in this case, it's Canadian food supply. And so I think it's to be seen how the federal government will distribute that food hub and food terminal funding, because my read on it is that they're looking for corporate partners, maybe outside of the five main monopoly grocer partners. However, it's through this food shed procurement network. It's like a strategic alliance. It's in formation at the moment. There is 7 different organizations throughout the southern interior that have the capacity and the scale to say, we're a food hub and we're eligible at that scale and that scope. And so that is an avenue that Local Food Matters is pursuing along with Land to Table Network in Armstrong.
Fantastic. Thank you.
No follow-up? Councilor Grill?
So through this process, like last year, we received a real detailed project-based budget. Would that be coming?
So this year, the process was refined for us. So we have submitted an application through the CSRD portal. And so it's been vetted by CSRD staff to be in compliance with F29.
9.
And with that application was submitted also a detailed budget. And I'm sorry that I wasn't aware that that information wouldn't be transferred over to you, but we're happy to provide the application and budget.
Thank you.
Mr. Dinagar?
I can just confirm that it has been received by staff and we're on target to bring it forward as its own request, because normally the presentation is just a presentation,
Yeah.
provide sort of the background. And then the actual decisions made through a staff report. So that's coming to the next council meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, and that'll contain the budget and the details of the application.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Dindigar. Council, any other questions, queries with regards to the presentation? It's generated a lot of discussion, which is great. So with that, thank you very much for the information, the presentation, and as Mr. Dindigar said, staff will bring forward some information and will be dealt with at a subsequent council meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, with that, council, we'll move on the agenda to item number 7, the items of external correspondence. I'm looking for a motion that the items of external correspondence be received.
Also move.
Count. What? What did I miss?
I said I'll move that motion.
Okay, we have that moved by Councilor Dale, seconded by Councilor Guio. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. So we have under 7B a number of action items, and the first one being an invitation to the Resource Breakfast Series. And that's the 13th annual series. So that's September 15, 16, 17. That I believe that links in with the UBCM, Union of British Columbia Municipalities Annual Conference, noting that the breakfast sessions are from 7 to 8:30 each of those mornings, and that tickets are sold per breakfast, with local governments asked to limit attendance to 2 seats per municipality or regional district to support the participation from across the province. So that's an opportunity available. Any action that council wants to take on that item? Not, I'll just move on to the next one. And at the end, if there's a desire, we can bring it back. The next communication is with regards to the Heritage Conservation Act Transformation Project. And they provided an update on the transformation project and an invitation to join regional in-person engagement sessions for local governments in June. And there's also an option for virtual attendance. And the next one. The next item is a email from, I guess, an individual drawing our attention, urging us to support for stronger wildfire resilience measures in our community and identifying how the municipality of Golden can help. And they respectfully ask that we bring forward a resolution to council and submit it to UBCM, advocate for coordinated provincial action at upcoming UBCM meetings, and work with council and local partners to ensure our community is prepared and protected. And I think that was all the items for action. Council, is there any actions that council want to move forward on any of these resolutions? Okay, with that, we will go on to the informational item, which is, whoops, the wrong one. My apologies. There it is. Communication from the Local Government Relations Unit, providing a brief reference document to support local governments and First Nations with regards to information about tournament-related activities. I'm sure some people have watched the soccer games on TV. And with a request that we share this information with relevant staff and to support awareness and planning. Seeing no other actions, we'll move on to item 7D. There's no internal correspondence, and we'll move to, there's no outgoing correspondence. Then we go on to 8, which is reports from council. Who wants to start us off? Councilor Manuel.
Just want to touch base first. I pre. You. At a previous meeting, I reported that made a couple reports, and I'd like to amend them because I didn't get everything correct. With regard to, yeah, I know, with regard to the village of Lytton and what their problems and what they've been doing. It was mentioned earlier that, well, I mentioned that I forgot to mention that one of the major things they said, the lessons learned from it is keep the fuel down. And for some reason, I thought that was in the village. No, it's surrounded by forest like the rest of us. So reduce fuel. And also, I mentioned item on something I've been following for quite a long time, which is what happened with the Cowichan decision in the Lower Mainland, and it's raised a lot of issues with people who say, well, this, they're creating all kinds of issues which may not be there because it's probably going to go through the courts for a decade. But and afterwards I mentioned that I quoted a newspaper saying the Supreme Court in Canada has upheld a ruling that Aboriginal title cannot be declared over private land. Fortunately, Councillor Routley noted to me that it was not that simple. As I now understand it, First Nations cannot seek to have private lands returned. If they have lost lands which are now privately owned, their path for compensation is in claims against the government for the value of their lands and not for the landowner. I'm assuming that's because the government was the one, or the people that the government was the one that made these possible for sale when it seems likely that they shouldn't have. And yes, I think that's it for me.
Thank you for that. Any questions of Councillor Manuel? Councillor Routley, question of Councillor Manuel?
Thank you. Just a brief clarification, since I was mentioned.
Supplemental.
Yeah, with respect to the Supreme Court decision, obviously this was in the New Brunswick decision, not the Cowichan decision, which is still before the court. With respect to the Wistogi Nation, which in that case, the Supreme Court actually just refused to hear the appeal, in essence upholding the ruling of the the appeals court in New Brunswick. But that begins forming the basis for precedent, and should, in my opinion, assuage any concern, rightfully or perhaps stoked, within the private land base around what the impacts around private or Indigenous title would have. So
thank you for that. Follow up, Councillor Manuel.
Basically, and this is a very positive information because there have been a lot of scare stories put out there that you can't, people's lands are devalued. You can't get a mortgage because it's in this situation. Hopefully, this will reduce a lot of that alarm information. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Any other council reports? Councillor Routley?
Thank you. I will be very brief. Kicking Horse Country, or sorry, now the Golden Chamber, although the name change is still processing. Began strategic planning on the 11th. Really good session. Some new faces at the table of the board. And on the 12th, the AKBLG also had an advocacy meeting. And so while council is considering our UBCM appointments, so too is AKBLG, and how we can best support member municipalities. So some communication might go out and just trying to make sure that AKBLG is supporting member local governments as best as possible. And then otherwise, just some internal stuff. So I'll just send that via email. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any questions of Councillor Routley? See none. Any other council reports? Councillor Wheel.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have much to report. I was away at a conference with the mayor to FCM, and it was a really good conference. It's not like UBCM, it's not like AKBLG.
Councillor Guido said that over and over and over, just for the record.
Yeah, but we did see a great I did a great documentary on thinking beyond the market, talking about affordable housing, genuinely affordable housing, and then it was dismantled by a politician from Qualicum, but it was good. Good. And I met with the film commissioner of Edmonton to get some information for the kind of the projects it's been working on in Golden. And I found it was a really good opportunity to strengthen regional relationships. So I did get to spend a little time with Councillor Wood from Invermere and Mayor Gray from Radium and Richard Klobuchar, I guess it would be. And as well as meeting people from all over Canada and listening how they solve problems. And I picked up a few kind of good tidbits that we might be able to work here. And of course, you know, I'm a fan of the trade show. So I talked everyone's ear off. And then the other event that I went to was the in-flight robotics event this week. That it really excites me because I see some great opportunities for how that could be used in our area. So that's all I have to
Thank
say.
you. Any questions of Councillor Will? Seeing none, I'll go to Councillor Hambrick and then I'll go to Councillor Cooper. Chris? Yeah, Councillor Hambrick?
Yeah, okay, thanks, Your Worship. Yeah. I attended a Kootenai East Regional Hospital District meeting. Just to report on a few projects that are coming to Golden. The helipad resurfacing at the Golden Hospital will be completed by hopefully the end of September. There's an uninterruptible power supply replacement that'll be completed by the end of August. The CT rural scanner planning is still underway, and we're continuing to try to ensure that comes to Golden. And the other projects are two other projects, ceiling lift installation for people like me that need to be lifted out of a wheelchair. I can't believe the price that is now. $63,000 to put in a ceiling lift. And a sewer system lift station upgrade to the tune of $70,000. So that's it for me.
Thank you for that, Councillor Hambrick. Questions of Councillor Hambrick? Actually, I'll add a little bit of supplemental, but maybe so bold with the CT planning. The language that they used was that project is paused, and we will talk a little bit more about that in close. One other comment that came up, I attended the board meeting virtually as a spectator, and IH brought forward a number of projects, identified a number of projects in a number of different communities. One of the projects was the installation of a sink. And I think it was, Councillor Hambrick, was it a hand sanitization sink? But something of that nature. They had a picture of it, it was a sink, a normal sink.
I believe it was a hand sanitizer sink, but they weren't sure whether it was a new installation in a new location or a replacement of an existing.
But my point being is they'd identified $40,000 for that project.
Yeah.
That was actually questioned by one of the directors, the health board directors, and staff, to be fair to them, may not have had all the details of why the budget was so high. So they tried to present some options that might be available, but it was quite interesting. I think the other thing they also identified was projects that were complete. There was 2 new tubs at Durand, and there's also new refrigeration at the morgue. All important stuff for different reasons.
Yeah, one of those tubs doesn't work.
Okay, good, good information. Okay, thank you for that. Any other thoughts, comments from questions of Councilor Hamburg? No, other council reports? Councilor Cooper, my apologies.
No, that's okay. I was waiting. On June 11th. See?
Ooh.
Look at that. I also attended the in-flight robotics open house during the day, and it was great to see what our community has, and talked about notes about pest control areas, certification, talking to the high school about getting other kids involved and learning about this, just a lot of aspects. It's really great to see this industry and see it locally, and thoughts on how we can use it, I think is really great for our economic development of our town. And so I really enjoyed that, getting to meet Seth and getting to hear what he was doing. I appreciated the open house, and I thought it was really great for us. On Monday the 8th, Minister Parmar was in town for us from the Minister of Forestry. He was here, he met with constituents and some council members at that. And then we went out for dinner also afterwards. And it was great to see one FaceTime within our community, listening to industry, listening to community needs, and thinking about future of Golden and our forestry and our community forests that we've spoken a lot about within partnership, and having that face-to-face presence of someone who is traveling out to see us and actually really getting to hear from leaders, industry, and community, I think was very valuable, and I really appreciated his efforts in making his time to come to see us. I also want to talk about kicking horse culture, and my tablet at this very convenient time will not tap. Kicking horse culture, talking about nominating them for a BC award. I really wish, let me get the right terms here. Emberfest, to nominate them for a BC Live Awards, but in order to nominate Kicking Horse Culture for this festival award, which I think is a award winning in our own right, it's been going on for many years. It's Emberfest now, it was Snow King. It's a great cornerstone of our winter celebrations in town. We have to be members of the BC Live nominating committee, which requires a membership fee to nominate Kicking Horse Culture. So I wanted to bring it forward to council to ask, to put a motion forward to see if we'd be interested in nominating Emberfest and becoming a member of the BC Live Awards to nominate them. And the cost was $160 plus GST. So I was just bringing that forward.
So bring that forward as a motion, as a resolution.
So I had
Isabel?
provided some advice per email, that because this isn't related to an item on the agenda, that typically this would come forward under new business as a notice of motion, and then council would vote at it at the next meeting.
Thank you. So does that meet with the timelines of the?
The nomination is
Nomination?
to the end of August, so I just wanted to bring it forward as the council report. This was the agenda that was happening, but yes, to bring it forward, this would be information coming within the next council meeting for a vote.
Thank you, and that's heads up.
Yeah.
Any
Thanks.
questions of Councilor Cooper? Seeing here none. Okay, we'll move on. Any other council reports? Because otherwise I'm gonna slide into mine. You're in trouble. I may not be as brief. Councilor Manuel, you saved us.
Briefly, yeah. Also, I was also at the meeting with Minister Parmar, thank you. And I was quite interested because he was interested more, not just on what he is responsible for, but larger elements within our community, i.e. things like healthcare, which was interesting. Also, he was it wasn't just coming to Golden, he was doing on numerous other towns, I believe, seemed to be like gathering information about what we're feeling out in this area, which I thought was of value. Yeah.
Thank you. I guess the one thing I made a note to add to Mr. Parmar's visit here is that someone drew my attention to some Facebook, I think they're Facebooks, I don't know, posts that the minister had. There are live video feeds where in fact he was promoting Golden, talking about being in Golden, and in fact included, I would say, an advertisement for jobs available at PWT. It was quite interesting. It was very personable, and it was great that he was able to come here. So for myself, I don't have the dates. I don't remember. I attended the BC Hydro Columbia operations update. This was, in my note, I say a bit frustrating for me, but it was actually very frustrating for me. Then that there's a number of new staff in place, and many of them are either not aware of the historical practices relating to local involvement, or they don't care. The Kin Basket Debris Program is going ahead without a local stakeholder meeting, which has always happened each and every spring. The Kin Basket will be full pond this spring. They're planning that. That's going to be a reality. And they have requested permission from the Comptroller of Water Rights to surcharge 1 foot. Historically, if there was a surcharge, there would be an additional $500,000 in the debris program to be able to deal with the additional floating debris that ends up around the outer edge of the bathtub ring. That money has not been confirmed here. It's appearing that there will be no additional money for cleanup. But with full pond, there's also the opportunity to use alternate removal processes, in that we had an opportunity. A couple years ago, we did with PWT a pilot project to bring wood from the Kin Basket into town to have it chipped and used into the cogen. Is that the right language? And the material was good, and it worked for PWT. The key factor was the wood needed to be floating at the time as opposed to on the ground. So full pond provides us the opportunity for that to actually happen with a volume that is quite large. And the intent here is to find alternate ways to deal with that volume of materials, and it ranges between 20,000 and 30,000 cubic meters of wood. That's a lot of wood. That's a forest license that you could actually make some money on. The intent here is to, rather than burn it, to use it for other purposes. It would be burned at PWT, but it would be burned at high temperature and very low emissions. Mike, bringing this up to the BC Hydro staff, again, either they were new staff and were unaware, or there were other motivators. It was received as a surprise by them. So I'll continue to push on that. There was actually funding from Forest FSBC, Forest Enhancement Society of British Columbia. So that's an interesting file to continue to follow up on. As noted, I attended as a spectator of the East Kootenay Regional Health District Board meeting. I think we covered off all the notes. I also had the opportunity to attend the cadets annual inspection ceremonies and provided the opportunity to present some of the awards, which was pretty cool. An amazing group of youth that learned many skills, including, wait for it, civics. What a concept. And I thought civics was lost to our youth. I'll slide into FCM. So there was a tour. I attended the U of A engineering department, where the students are researching small nuclear reactor technologies to produce emissions-free green energy. And they talked about their partnership with the city of Edmonton and Diesel Tech Industries to develop retrofits for heavy-duty buses and trucks to run on dual fuel. That's both hydrogen and diesel, or 100% hydrogen. There's a lot of smart people that work in those at the universities. I also spent a bunch of time with Green Municipal Funds representatives. One of the representatives, no, I won't identify her by name, but she used to work for Columbia Basin Trust. So there's actually a relationship with a federal agency there, which was great. She was wanting to confirm our climate ready action plan, and she was actually standing there trying to get $70,000 to us for a feasibility study, and through the GMF, you can apply for up to $1 million for implementation. She did talk about the C2CI project as being a potential under that banner, so there may be some opportunities for GCAD to follow up with this individual who will not be named, Caitlin. And they also talked about, she talked about the opportunity for some potential brownfield mitigation funding. So that also caught my ears. Councilor Guido and I, and she had the misfortune of sitting next to me at this one, the Destination Canada presentation. Actually, I'm not going to speak to it. I will just say that I'm generally, not generally, I'm always very quiet at these events. I was fingers up pointing at the presenters on this one. Yeah, I'm just going to leave that. Attended the BC caucus meeting, and the conversation was about building a relationship with the MPs, and a number of MPs have been previously local government representatives, so that's positive, and they're advocating for, and the BC caucus is also advocating for direct funding to municipalities. Attended a session on code of conduct. Misery loves company. It's a challenge across the country. The Strong Cities Network has a digital library available with campaigns. There's an elect and respect campaign. There's tools available. Kind of the bottom language was play nicely to ourselves, but also to future counselors. They did draw attention to the fact that it's much more difficult for female elected officials than for males. And there's also collaboration with the local leaders for mental health, BC. I attended a session with, actually, I'll go to that one after. I had a conversation with Rob from TOTA, Thompson Okanagan Tourism Association. I got a response back from him thanking me for my frank conversation with him. He was talking about promoting tourism, as was the folks at Destination Canada. And I happened to draw attention to some of the impacts of tourism on our municipal infrastructure and the carrying capacities, or the lack of carrying capacity. He was quite interested in hearing about that, and has followed up. And in a couple of weeks' time, we'll be talking some more. So I will be sharing that language to another tourism association. I became aware of the Happy Hippie. Google it. It is pretty scary. We had oh yeah. And the other one was attended a session with Mr. Cup. And there was a couple other presenters. I'll pull out some quick comments. There's a lack of modest understanding of good manners, lack of common courtesy. You all have to have to hold each other accountable. And an interesting comment from Cuff was that we don't have the tools to solve all the problems. Many of them are not our responsibility. And he talked about housing. He talked about homelessness, healthcare system. He did talk about doing double in cameras. And that's an opportunity for councils without any staff present to be able to ask questions. How are we doing? Where can we improve? A big focus on catching people before they get elected and making them aware. And that's some of the conversation we've all had around this table. And it's a conversation that happens in our region, AKBLG for sure, and across the province. Inform them pre-election, and then an emphasis on, once the election's over, to have an orientation within 10 days, get them while they're still willing to receive new information. Key point was be issues driven as opposed to person driven. And I guess the other comment would be just final comment of try to be a little kinder to each other. And that's across the board. Mr. Denegar and I also met with Taylor from Look West, and that's a program that I think we're all familiar with. They were talking about the kind of the key growth sectors and identified as maritime, aerospace, critical minerals, construction, innovation / forestry / value added, energy, LNG, and then tourism, outdoor rec. From my perspective, I shared with Taylor what I thought are some massive opportunities for major projects, and the focus is on major projects. With the silica that we have in our valley, with 2 plants, with 2 mines, actually, more accurately, 1 plant, and the potential for a 3rd mine that's at the early stages. Mr. Denegar, anything to add to the meeting with Look West? No, okay, we'll go there. We'll shorten this up. Mr. Denegar and I guess that meeting with Look West was the 2 of us, and it was Director Cathcart and Mr. Armstrong. And then Mr. Denegar and I and Director Cathcart met with IFR Robotics, had a great conversation. There's also already connections been made. We had the representation from the fire emergency services there, the fire department. They saw some great opportunities for utilizing the tools and equipment that this entity has. A couple areas were infrared or heat sensing. Drones that have that heat sensing capabilities. They've made contact with Mr. Cochran. They have tools that will actually measure the condition of your road surfaces to within 3 millimeters. Pretty amazing stuff for data. They also talked about green LiDAR, which will actually penetrate water. So could be conversations about how that could be utilized for the Kicking Horse River gravel extraction processes that we have in place. So there's a number of conversations that are going forward. There was a number of resolutions from FCM. I'll send you the note on that one. And I guess my final comment was an article at the Financial Post jumped out at me. It says in nice bold letters, you can't build a house if you can't flush the toilet. And it's talking about the hidden housing bottleneck that lurks beneath Canadian cities. Housing development is running up against a basic blockage beneath the streets, water and sewer systems that can't keep up with the city or the town's growth. Any of this sound familiar? And there's going on to say that as a result of this, housing projects are delayed, fewer homes reach the market, and the cost of new infrastructure construction is increasingly passed on to buyers and renters. All information that we know about and the realities that we're trying to deal with within our community, and it's happening across the country. With that, I will end. My apologies. But it's on the agenda. Any questions of that report? If there's any details you want, do not hesitate to reach out and send me an email, because I can send you copious amounts of information. Moving on the agenda, we'll move on to item number 10, I guess, 10A, Chief Administrative Officer. Sir, an update?
Thank you. Also lots of meetings. It's amazing what we can do in 2 weeks. So I've met with contractor Suzanne Denbach, who's working for Tourism Golden on developing their 5-year strategic plan. You should watch your emails for a potential invitation to be involved in that. Also met with Kootenai Rockies Tourism Association, again, follow up from the first meeting at the TG AGM, but working with them to try and coordinate like locally regional or broader regional get-togethers between staff and elected officials potentially in the coming year or so, to try to build the bonds between the DMOs, the region, and the local governments. We really need to work together to get things moving. So good momentum there. First meeting with a bunch of council and Director Cathcart with the Honorable Ravi Parmar, that good roundtable dinner. Stakeholders, also met with stakeholders regarding next steps to establish the community forest. We made some good progress there. Assigned responsibilities to everybody in the room, I think. Met with Taylor Jenkins, Regional Manager, East Kootenai, Regional Economic Operations Team, Ministry of Jobs and Economic Growth. I swear they get their pay based on how long their titles are. So yeah, as the mayor mentioned, looking at their new Look West strategy, they'll have very specific strategies for each sector coming out over time, tourism being the first one that is out. I hope that's a good sign that they recognize how important it is. And yeah, so everything we do in terms of asking for money from higher levels of government should align with that strategy. There's no new money announced, but it's definitely a reprioritization of what they'll focus their existing efforts on. So we need to be in stream on that. Also met with that local drone business about potential technologies, everything from emergency response to road condition assessments. So not that we're locking ourselves in with any one business, but there's a wealth of knowledge there locally. So we're going to pick their brains. And finally, Golden Area Emergency Management Program did an after action review following the recent flood event and the activation of the EOC. So I think that was a really good debriefing, and there'll be more to come from that to make sure that everything runs smoother every time this happens. Specific to some departments in corporate services and communications, as part of the Regional Accessibility Advisory Committee, the CSRD, in partnership with member municipalities, has launched an accessibility survey to guide the regional accessibility plan. Residents can take the survey now until July 24th. Just go to csrd.bc.ca/accessibility. Also, staff Alicia and Carrie attended the Local Government Management Association, the LGMA conference last week. Always great conferences. I actually missed them myself, and they came back all excited with the stories of all the things they'd learned. And Carrie dumped, I think, 100 files of information that we're all going to have to read through for the next while. But yeah, I think I need to go next year because a lot of good learning happens at these. So they're great sessions on things such as crisis communications, council orientations, and data governance. All things very relevant. As part of the changing track here, as part of the new responsible pet ownership bylaw rollout, the most wonderful thing that this community cares about, dogs, the corporate services is working with a local animal trainer and Little Mittens to host a free dog information session on June 23rd from 6 till 8 at the dog park. To learn more, you can check out golden.ca/pets. Interesting note that at the LGMA conference, the BCSPCA told our town staff that from their perspective, our new bylaw is now one of the top animal bylaws in the province. Congratulations. And thanks to the public for their input into that. Moving on to finance and administration, happy to announce that Jen Higginson has been promoted internally and will be starting as the new administrative clerk for the finance and admin team on Monday, June 22nd. So if you're in next week, do say hello and welcome her to her new position. And to pay for all the things we do, property tax payments are coming in. We are very grateful to those who pay so that we can keep this wonderful town going. Planning and development, another hire, Lee Beaver has started earlier this month as the town's new building official, and onboarding is in full swing. Please do drop by and say hi to him. Welcome him on board as well. He's very eager, and we have to send him home every night. So yeah. Work continues on the DCC and OCP project. There's definitely been a lot of complications with some of them because of the complexity, especially the DCCs, but they are still moving forward. fun little thing. Planning Tech and the director from Planning and Development attended the school district's River Days and Water Festival, shared historical photos, floodplain maps, and dike breach scenario videos. We heard their grade 12 legal course students were very interested in the legalities around dike breach scenarios. Inspiring lawyers of the future. Over in protective services in the fire department, again, reminder of the action review that occurred. It's part of what should happen after these EOCs is an after action meeting to find any spots for improvement in the processes. But overall, it went pretty well. Chief Wilkie attended the BC Fire Chief Conference and Learning Summit in Victoria, helping build that network that's so important for getting advice on how to tackle all these things. And an important note for council and the public to know, just because you may hear about it, is that the first responder agreement between the Golden Fire Rescue and BCAHS has been updated. So Town of Golden firefighters will now respond only to red and purple priority medical calls, which represent the highest acuity incidents requiring immediate life-saving intervention. But our Golden Rescue team will not be responding to orange priority calls. So these are calls which are urgent, but generally involve a lower immediate risk to life compared to the red and purple. Of course, if things escalate, they'll get out there. But this is to ensure that our fire department resources remain focused on where they can provide the greatest benefit to the community, not stretch ourselves too thin. Public Works, Boulevard and Parks maintenance is the main priority right now at this time of year. So we'll probably see some wonderful improvements around town as we fight the seasons. Pine Drive sanitary main construction work is ongoing, and planting of BC Hydro regreening trees, that's 19 new good sizable trees, is almost complete. And last but not least, Department of Fun, Recreation Services. Surfacing work is wrapping up on the new rackets court facility today. I was seeing rain earlier today because the next point is that cure time is required before the facility opens for play. Maybe we'll get some sun and that'll help speed that up. And staff are in discussions with the pickleball club regarding a grand opening event. Landscaping work around the racket courts facility is underway and anticipated to be completed in mid-July. Renovation work on the Recplex lobby has started with completion planned for the end of June. The bid package for the Recplex tennis court reconfiguration closed last week, so you'll be seeing something coming forward in an upcoming meeting. Staff at the pool are busy hosting school groups and the National Lifeguard course. And finally, the summer operational schedule begins on June 29th. That is everything I can update you with without taking the whole afternoon. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Any questions, comments from Mr. Dennegar? Councilor Manuel?
One comment briefly at the open house with the for the drones and that. It was interesting to find out that he's got a large drone with the capacity of almost 100 pounds, which is not how we used to think about small drones. Question, which is I'm not terribly concerned about it, but I'm just wondering if there's been any movement in terms of how this area adapts to or chooses to climb them.
Yeah, we're trying to coordinate RDK. The last conversation with RDEK. See, he's got me in the habit of leaving it off. The last conversation we had with RDEK was to work between the comms teams to get a single survey out. I have shot them a request yesterday asking for an update. I haven't heard back yet. If I don't hear back by the end of today, I'll be making a phone call because we are expecting it to come out around now. But no news yet.
Thank you for that. Councilor Hambrick?
Yeah, thanks, Martin. Just one comment. Very glad to hear about the realignment of the fire department's response to 911 calls. That should help keep them more focused.
Thank you for that, Councilor Hambrick. And I guess I have one comment with regards to the building inspector and the need to send him home each night. Maybe my belief that new staff I think the proper word is emanate, the practices they see when I look around the rest of our staff. So you need to send each other home at sometimes. Just saying.
Very subtle hint, thank you.
I just,
Councilor Guil?
with regards to the new building inspector, I liked the eager beaver.
I guess the one other thing is with regards to the CSRD's accessibility survey, I will say there is, I think, shared disappointment in the length of time this process has taken. We've received some updates as to some of the rationale for the delays, but I mean, many communities have gone ahead and had their accessibility plan done in very short order relative to we're just starting to get, they are just starting to gather information with regards to creating that accessibility plan. The fear is that, my personal fear is that there may be limitations to the actual product that we get at the end of the day, and it's how relative it is to actually our community and what does that look like from an implementation perspective. So we'll wait and see, and then we'll just move forward, I guess. Okay, with that, we will move on the agenda and flip the page, multiple pages, on to 10AB, which is a staff report from Mr. Denegard with regards to EOF request for Golden Community Economic Development Site. Mr. Denegard?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the request here from staff is to help us deal with a miscommunication that occurred shortly after I came on board. Somehow missed the idea that we were going to match the taxation of the regional district for a portion of the funding for the Golden CED. So the regional district went ahead and implemented that taxation, collected the revenue, sent it to us, and then we're like, what's this? So the agreement included the total funding, but without the town of Golden matching the tax revenue from the regional district, it would be unfair for us to fund basically 3/4 through the region and 1/4 through us by consuming their taxation for that. So the request is to complete the funding for 25-26 using EOF funds, totaling $60,000. So this really is just wrapping up an existing agreement which has already been mostly funded. If there's any questions, happy to answer.
Thank you for that. We have a recommendation. Any questions of clarification prior to getting the resolution on the floor? Councilor Cooper?
Sorry, when I was reading this report, so what I'm assuming by reading and understanding, that we have given the $375,000 worth of funds from EOF, and because of the taxation issue or whatever, so we're not being asked for the 15,000 from Town of Golden money. We're asked to approve the 60,000 total from EOF funding. Is that the way I'm reading it correctly?
Mr. Denegard?
The total amount of funds agreed to for the whole year have been agreed by contract between all three parties. There's $60,000 of that total that hasn't yet been provided to Golden CED. If it had gone through the budget process a year and a half ago and been approved by council, we would have taxed for $30,000 and the regional district taxed their $30,000. That would make up the final $60,000 of the total amount that was already agreed to go to Golden CED. They already sent us that $30,000. We would have combined our $30,000 of revenue from taxation and already been providing that to the Golden CED. But when this is discovered, there was a lot of conversation trying to figure out how do we deal with this problem. So here we are 2 months from the end of their agreement. And we haven't yet paid out that final 60,000. So the recommendation is let's just get that out of EOF as the rest of the funds have been and close off this agreement with them.
So for clarification, $315,000 had been, 315 of $375,000 has been advanced.
Already, yes.
This is the shortfall. Any follow-up?
No, thank you. That's, I just wasn't clear by the discussion if we were taking 15,000 but the 30,000, the 60,000 is from EOF to top up to the 375,000.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, Council Grill,
I'd like to move that council support the request for $60,000 from the Economic Opportunity Fund to complete the work plan included as part of the Golden Community Economic Development Society's services agreement for September 1st, 2025 to August 31st, 2026.
we got a mover looking for a seconder, Council Routley. Any discussion on the motion on the floor? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much, Mr. Denigar. Moving on to corporate services and communications. Oh, my apologies. Council Grill.
Further to that motion, I'd like to make a subsequent motion that council direct staff to include accountability requirements as set out below in any future contribution service agreements for the use of economic opportunity funds. Accountability measures require prior to disbursement. Number one, full project accounting demonstrating that public funds are applied to their intended purposes. Number two, affirmation of alignment with the town's official community plan. Number three, sub-partner identification and accountability so that responsibility for public funds is clearly assigned. And number four, project-based staffing allocation. Ongoing accountability and transparency measures. Number one, an open AGM with full audited financials presented, ensuring transparency to the community. And number two, town board liaison appointment at council's discretion, and that staff be directed to include for consideration any future contribution agreements related to economic opportunity funds, these and other accountability requirements that will support council's duty to responsible steward public funds.
Thank you for that. Question of clarification to staff. Is this in the form of a notice of motion, or is this a motion that we need to get seconded and deal with today?
This is directly related to an item on the agenda, so I think it would be up to council.
Thank you for that. So I'd be looking for a seconder to that motion. Council Cooper seconding the motion. Discussion on the motion. Council Rutley.
Thank you, Worship. I'm not prepared to debate or discuss like the full scope of this, particularly as it pertains to EOF being a CSRD project or a CSRD function living under the regional district. And with that, I suppose I would just have to refer to my Robert's rules around referring to a motion to refer to or defer to the July regular open council meeting.
So a motion to defer once is not, the second is not debated. Is that correct?
Say that again, please.
A motion to defer once seconded is not debated, it just voted upon.
Correct.
Great. Okay, so I'm looking for a second for the motion to defer. We've got a seconder, so with no ability to debate, we go to the vote. All those in favor of the motion for deferral?
Clarification, what are we voting on exactly? Are we voting on,
To put this off till the July meeting is basically what we're doing.
but we don't have any we're not allowed to have any conversation as to around it. We just have to vote to put it off. And then
And
it comes
back, guarantees to come back on the July, the next council meeting. Or you have to identify it'll come back to the July 16th meeting
okay.
for the opportunity for supplemental information. So all those in favor of the motion for deferral? All those opposed to the motion to deferral? So we have Councilor Guio voting opposed.
I voted in favor because if everyone's,
Yeah.
so everyone has time. I don't.
Okay. Counselor Jail, I didn't see your hand go up. Is there anybody out there? Counselor Jail, are you able to hear me? In the absence of the hand, it would just be a vote of the 6 people. So there's one counselor opposed. Counselor Guile will note that for the minutes, and we'll note that Counselor Jail did not vote on this particular matter. Does that seem appropriate? Thank you for that. Counselor Manuel?
Would we, could we now expect people at our next meeting, staff report as we do on different things about, no, we can't, okay.
Not unless that's directed by council resolution. So at the process now would be that this would come back on the next regular open council meeting agenda under new business for council's consideration and to vote on it.
Counselor Guile?
One question with regards to this, then since this is clearly tied to any economic EOF, then nothing can be decided on any other applications until this is decided.
I'll be so bold as to say the decision that we just made with regards to 60K, that goes forward.
Yep.
And then any subsequent EOF request would be subject to whether or not this resolution goes forward. Mr. Jeniger?
I would just say procedurally, it really is up to council whether or not this is a settled matter before any EOFs are approved or not. The order of how you work through it in upcoming council meetings might be that you actually, as a council as a whole, decide to support some, and they just continue status quo agreements. And this matter may take more than one meeting.
So in the absence of new direction, the old direction exists.
Yes.
Is basically my takeaway from that. Okay, thank you for that. To that end, there's supplemental information I'd like to see with regards to the proposed resolution, and that's asking staff to bring back some information relative to the points. And the one point that jumps out at me is with regards to the liaison position and some conversations that have happened historically there. So I'd make the motion that we have staff bring back a report relative to the resolution that's on the floor, or that was deferred more accurately. Seconding the motion. Second the motion. Councilor Cooper, speaking to the motion.
Sorry, can I add about the Society Act? Because I don't see it up in front of us again. But one of the things was is part of the Society Act to have a budget. Can you put the motion back up? Sorry. Yeah, sorry. I just want, open AGM, audited financial presence and ensuring transparency of the community. So full audited financial, so that is part of the Society Act. So if you can include within the staff information coming back, the Society Act that's referencing these points, because that is based in the Society Act. Does that make sense?
Whatever staff bring back, we're going to be double checking these things. Like I've already got a note from our CFO that a quote unquote full audited financials is an incredibly expensive thing. So there's different levels.
Just financial, whatever's in the Society. I can't remember offhand. It would just.
So we would look at the requirements in related to acts. Yes.
Okay.
Any other clarification needed? Okay, that's good. I lost it here.
You have a motion duly seconded.
Duly seconded. Let's vote on the motion. And there's the motion on the floor. Simply amazing. Thank you. She works well under pressure. So voting in favor of the motion? Opposed? I'm going to say carried unanimously by those present. And I'm still on the assumption that Councilor Dale is not receiving the information or the audio to be able to voice his votes. Okay, with that, we move on to Corporate Services and Communications Department. And we have the 2025 annual report. Get my computer to work for me. We have a staff report from Ms. Seville.
Thank you, Mayor Zust. So the preparation and publication of an annual report is a legislative requirement for all municipalities in BC. The community charter outlines what must be included in the report, how it is advertised, and requires that council hold a meeting before June 30th of each year where the public is invited to provide comments or ask questions specifically on the report. This year, the annual report was made publicly available on May 27th, both on golden.ca and at Town Hall. It was advertised in the Golden Star and promoted on social media. At the time of the report deadline, no public comments had been received. However, shortly after the report was submitted for the agenda, one comment was received on social media. The resident commented that social services should not be a municipal priority and that the town should focus on core municipal services. And that was the extent of the comment.
And for the record, that was not me.
It's also important to note that the community charter requires council to consider the annual report rather than approve it. This is simply because it is a record of past activities and services delivered. And so there is a recommendation there. And if anyone would like to ask questions or provide commentary on the annual report, this would be that opportunity.
Council, any comments, questions before we get the resolution to consider on the floor? Seeing here none, I'm looking for a mover. Councilor Routley, seconded by Councilor Manuel. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you for that. And now let's have some fun. We have a staff report from Mr. Cochran with regards to the 19 infrastructure projects examples presented in 2013. Mr. Cochran, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Based on a request for an update on this information, this report has been prepared for council's information. So the recommendation is to receive the report for information. Under the background section of the report, in September of 2013, a report was brought forward to council by myself in consultation with the finance department regarding asset management program update and project examples. So that was the sort of the first identification of 19 priority projects in the community that could be pursued. Following that, in November of the same year, another report was brought forward to council proposing two different possible timelines for pursuing these 19 various projects. But just to back up a little bit, the 19 projects at the time, based on Class D estimate, were valued at $14.2 million. I can say that since 2013, we've invested about $9.3 million in these 19 projects. Back initially, for the first report, pre-planning to bring them to grant ready status was discussed as we were anticipating the new Building Canada Plan grant program. So council passed the resolution contained in the report, the first resolution based on that information. And then, as I mentioned, a subsequent report was brought forward in November of the same year, strictly around the options of a 5-year process or a 10-year process to pursue these projects. The projects required boring were only to proceed if successful granting was confirmed for all or specific capital renewal projects under consideration. So the second resolution is there for council's information based on that report. And then in 2021, a boring bylaw, of course, was passed for up to $5 million. That supported 2 of the major infrastructure projects identified under the 19 in the North Downtown. Those projects were, of course, carried out without benefit of contributing grant funding. And then finally in March of this year, council endorsed a recommended final use of the loan authorization to support the project that we know as the 12th Street Lift Station Pumps and Pipes project that's currently under planning. So under discussion, I've tried to lay out where the town received successful funding specific to these 19 projects. So we can see in the report that there were 3 different funding opportunities that supported in some way, in some part, some of the projects. Specifically, if council refers to the spreadsheet that was attached to the staff report or the map that was passed out today, projects 5, 14, 15, and 16 were supported through this grant funding. So the grant funding totaled $2.36 million, supporting over $3.26 million of infrastructure improvements. Other funding that helped support these projects in some way was primarily the Community Works Fund. That's that 10-year program running from 2014 to 2024. Totaling approximately $2.45 million has been used historically in the community to fund the pavement patching program. So what was done was in many cases, a lot of the looking at the 18 of the 19 projects, with the 19th being the sewage treatment plant. Looking at the 18 projects, in a lot of cases, the worst of the worst areas of the paving was redone using the Community Works Fund. So again, valued at about $2.45 million over 10 years. And then I've outlined the unsuccessful funding applications applied for during that time period, specific to the projects. And there's 3 different funding programs that were applied for. Council may note that the 2 downtown roads projects, being 9th Avenue North and 6th Street North, they were applied for twice under 2 different funding programs. And then eventually we went to borrowing to get those done. And I can say that out of the 19 projects, we can mark 5 as being completed, 100% completed. Whereas all of the other remaining projects have in some way been touched on over the years, primarily through asphalt repaving or slip lining of sewer mains. The report goes on to say that the new Building Canada program funding, once it was released following the initial staff reports, it quickly became apparent that the province and the feds were not intending to fund road renewal projects specifically. They were interested in deep utilities, but the roads project component of that linear combined project, it could easily represent 60% of the project cost, and we just couldn't get them done without higher level government funding. And as I said, the new Building Canada program wasn't supportive of that. This isn't in the report, but council will know that during that same time period, EMBC, or now EMCR, came along with significant granting opportunities for flood protection. So knowing that we didn't really have anything to pursue under these 19 projects that was like significant in nature under major funding programs, we went after the flood protection granting. And based on this year's freshet, for example, it's a good thing that we did. It makes you feel better about floods in the community. So that's sort of the highlights of the staff report and the update for council. The plan drawing that I've laid on the table for everybody's information in red text shows that the red text in the information bubbles is the work that was done, and that ties back to the spreadsheet information that's contained in the staff report. The green items in the spreadsheet, of course, are the 100% completed projects. I'd say that well, we got some stuff done. It was probably mostly disappointing that we didn't get more done. And really it ties back to that 10-year NBCP program and the inability for us to fund the major road component of all of these projects that were identified. Not being sure what the future will bring, if there's going to be higher level government funding that'll support roads renewals, then certainly we've got a lot of the work done. These projects still remain priorities in the community, I would suggest. And I think I would have stated at the time, if we could clear these 19 off the books, I could easily provide 19 more. I mean, it's just endless. So hopeful that we'll see some significant funding coming from upper level governments. And if we do, I would say that probably the first thing that we want to do is go back to this and look at revising the scope of some of these projects that we've touched on in some way, if they're not complete already. So I think with that, I'd welcome any questions.
Thank you very much for the report and the update. From my perspective, greatly appreciated. This is good to see. Like you, I would echo that. It's great to see some things done. Also disappointing that we weren't able to get more done, and the limiting factor being dollars and cents.
Yes.
Carrying capacity of our ratepayers and also inaccessibility to grant funding. I have a number of other comments and questions. I guess I'll look to council if you have any feedback. If not, I'll slide into it. In your report, you said that the 19 projects were valued at $14.2 million, and that was 2013 dollars. Of that, we've invested $9.3 million. I'm just trying to translate that 14.2 into 2026 dollars. So from that comparison, it seems like we got 60% of it done, but the reality is those projects are worth a lot more than that 14.2 today. Is that correct?
Absolutely, Your Worship. The point that I hope to make with the $9.3 million is that there is a huge separation between what we originally projected as the Class D estimates for the projects and the reality of the costs. In fact, you've been here a while. You might recall when we did the sewage treatment plant, we applied for a grant that we thought would cover it all, and it ended up covering half, and we got a second grant to cover the rest. So probably the 14.2 would look more like $30+ million today.
Thank you for that. Difficult environment. And the other part on the numbers game, I would add that you talked about the EMBC MCR funding for diking and flood protection. Can you remind me how many millions of dollars of grant dollars have been invested in that flood protection?
Your Worship, I'd say that it was somewhere between $6 and $10 million. I'm sorry, I don't have the figure in front of me, but I know that the concrete flood wall project downtown alone was around $6 million by itself. So probably 10. Yep.
Thank you for that. And my mind had gone to $12 million when I thought about Hospital Creek and the addition there. So, and I share this just for public information that not only doing these infrastructure programs, at the same time, we've also gone through a process and garnered grants to be able to protect our community to the tune of about 10 to $12 million, which I think is pretty amazing. Any comments, questions? I have some notes to myself here. I'm just gonna find them. The one comment was with regards to the $5 million. So we've actually used up all the residual from those first projects onto the second project that you identified.
Yes, Your Worship. So For the $5 million expenditures, Ninth Avenue North was about $2.1 million of that. 6th Street North was about $1.4 million of that. So combined $3.5 million. We have approximately 1.5 remaining in borrowing, available borrowing for the 12th Street project, to my understanding.
And can you remind me kind of a ballpark what that 12th Street project is worth approximately?
Your worship, I believe it's north of 2 million, 2.3 million.
So
2.5
again,
million.
it won't cover all the costs, but it gets another
Yep.
projects off the list, which is great utilization of those dollars. And as staff have proven in the past, and I'm sure going forward, they will be ensuring that we get every other dollar from provincial or federal government that we can actually access. And thank you for your efforts on those fronts. My perspective is great. Oh, actually, the other comment was with regards to page 6 of your report, the list of the projects presented in 2013. Can you speak to or confirm that these projects were listed in priority status?
Your worship, they were not.
They were not. Okay.
No, they were not. I would say that the 19 projects that were brought together for initial presentation to council were based on discussions with our consultants at the time. They were identified as the highest priority combination linear projects, with the exception of the sewage treatment plant. When I say combination linear projects, it's like we looked at the worst road, water, and sewer conditions combined and determined the projects from that.
Thank you for that. And the 6% of the project being road is mind blowing.
Yep.
And I'm sure it gets higher in some instances, because I think about some areas of town where you actually start digging and you look at the substrate and it's not adequate and you got to pull it all out, put brand new substrate or to spec substrate in.
Well, Ninth Avenue North and
Was all of
Street
that.
North are perfect examples of that.
Yeah.
It was full replacement. Same with 12th Street South in 2009.
Yeah, that was deep excavation.
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Appreciate the report.
Thank you.
Anything from council? Okay, so am I the only one excited about this report? Other than Mr. Cochran. Thank you so much. I appreciate the follow-up on that. Now we're moving on the agenda. Planning and development. We have a development variance permit. Low 2026. Who is that young fellow?
Mr. Bose.
Thank you. Motion to receive the information in Mr. Cochran's report. I was so excited, I want to take it home. Moved by Councilor Manuel, seconded by Councilor Cooper. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. I'm also excited to see
Thank
this
you.
young fellow
Well,
in a blazer.
Likewise, your worship, and thank you. That's music to my ears. The notion of young fella. And with that in mind, I'll proceed. I'm here to seek permission and or direction from council to authorize the public notification for a variance to the minimum yard setback for a property located at 909 10th Street South. And they have submitted plans for a single detached dwelling, which is a permitted use under the zoning bylaw in the R2 zone. The owner is proposing one variance in order to obtain compliance with the zoning bylaw requirements. On an upfront basis, except for this one variance, the proposed structure, single detached dwelling, is in full compliance with the bylaw. The purpose of the R2 twin residential zone is to provide for the residential development of single detached dwellings, duplexes, and secondary residential dwellings, and provides opportunities for residential infill, which, as per the report in brief, is supported by the official community plan very broadly, specifically on a couple of notes under land use growth and land use and growth management to encourage growth and development as infill. In that same vein, to provide the most efficient use of land and existing physical infrastructure in terms of infill and densification. For some background and rationale, this property was subdivided with the application coming in 2015, and that development slash subdivision approval was granted in 2016 to create a building lot. And given the constraints at that time, the frontage was varied very slightly from 11 meters as per R2 to 10.33 meters, which is about 2.5 feet. However, keeping an eye on the future even then, did create a developable lot, and now the time has come to develop that lot. In the spirit of this development, the reason for seeking the variance from 3 meters to 1.5 meters for the side yard setback is to maximize the development potential of that lot and to provide a structure that has the optimal and, I suppose one could say, most livable and efficient floor plan possible. And so working, I suppose, in both measurement systems, 3 meters to 1.5 meters is a question of 5 feet on that. Actually, it's east or west property line, but in essence, it allows for the structure to be built out to its maximum potential while falling back on a variance that is acceptable on one side or the other. So it's I suppose, if you're going to resurrect the notion of minor variance, I think this is very much in that vein. So we're seeking that direction to proceed with public notification. And with that, I'm certainly open to any questions that you may have.
Thank you for that. Council, prior to getting the resolution on the floor, is there any questions of clarification or information needed? I'm seeing none, so looking for someone to move the recommended resolution. Councilor Rowley moving it, Councilor Guio seconding that motion. Discussion on the motion. I have a question with regards to, with the variance, would that would the variance allow for a detached secondary residential dwelling on that lot?
Well, given that, and since we're discussing a variance, given that the use regulations, specific use regulations in the bylaw dictate that a 600-meter minimum lot size is required, it would be, I would say, difficult to impossible to actually put a DSRD on the lands. And in that same vein, no secondary dwelling unit is actually proposed here, and they do meet the parking. So we're seeing, you know, should things go through as intended, the fruition of creating a lot. However, it would be a single detached dwelling and getting that infill done.
Thank you for that. And from that, I do see a win in the densification and the subdivision and getting another residence on that lot. I just was wondering if it actually opened up that door, but not saying that it was their intent, but it just from a physical capability perspective. Thank you for the response. Any other questions of Mr. McPhee? Seeing, hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Thank you, everyone.
And you look dapper today.
Oh.
Anyway,
I'm still a little guilty that it's so noticeable, actually.
looks like you're going out, some respectful afterwards.
Oh, well, you know, the rock water ducking.
You've set the stage. Okay, we're moving on to 11. Yes, bylaws. Ms. White.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The purpose of the report before you is to provide you an update on the progress of the municipal bylaw review project, which we hope will help provide the foundation for a more structured approach to our bylaw framework and help inform the development of a prioritized list and phased approach for your consideration here. The work we're doing with this project aligns with best practices for bylaw governance and supports transparency, and it also supports council's municipal goals and objectives. Just a little brief summary, the town has enacted more than 1,500 bylaws since 1957, with over 300 that are still active across all departments. Most were adopted more than a decade ago and have not undergone really any comprehensive review to confirm relevance or legal compliance, consistency, or even alignment with current municipal practices and strategic priorities. So recognizing this, staff have this year been undertaking a full indexing and review of all our bylaws, including those that are potentially expired or potentially need repeal. And trying to identify those that might require updates and areas where new bylaws may be needed. So as part of the initiative, the director team got together and reviewed their departmental bylaws. They updated the status of the bylaws to their best ability. We identified gaps and participated in sort of a cross-departmental workshop to do that work. And collectively prioritize bylaws for your consideration. The process informed the development of a phased review work plan, which is also part of this report. So 2 key items, we tried to break it into 2 key items for you to consider today. So first being the recommendation to eventually adopt a bylaw revision and consolidation authority bylaw, which is a bylaw under the community charter's bylaw revision regulation that enables administrative, non-policy, not substantive changes that would change the bylaw itself, but allows us to consolidate, correct clerical errors, update titles and numbering, potentially remove obsolete provisions without affecting the intent of the bylaw itself. It's, as I said, supported by the community charter bylaw revision regulation. As well, the second part of the report is the bylaw review and prioritization work plan, which outlines our completed work, the current status of our work, and 4 future phases, which address updates, repeals, and potentially creation of new bylaws where the gaps exist. At this point, I would say, or as part of today's report, council is invited to provide input on these priorities, including identifying any that council feels should be advanced sooner or suggesting additional bylaws for development. The report itself provides more detailed information on the project, and I would leave it there and invite any questions from you at this point.
Okay, council, prior to getting resolutions on the floor, are there any questions of clarification or information needed?
We could start with the bylaw if council is okay with that, if that helps keep it into 2 parts.
So dealing with bylaw, Town of Golden bylaw number 1515, 2026, bylaw revision and consolidation authority.
Yes, any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Seeing none, I'll look for a mover of that. Councilor Routley, looking for a seconder. Councilor Cooper. Any discussion on the motion, Councilor Routley?
Just kudos to staff and really excited for the like my mind immediately just goes to the zoning bylaw and the like crazy orienteering you have to do through different references to see what is surviving, and so to be able to have the bylaw consolidated and easy for staff as well as for folks looking to build or otherwise, you know, add to the vibrancy of the community. Simplicity is greatly greatly appreciated. So yeah, fantastic.
Anything else, council? Didn't hear none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. And any clarification, information needed with regards to resolution number 2, recommended resolution? So look, Councilor Routley?
Just on the timing for the trade license, the business licensing bylaw, is that just the natural progression, just going OCP zoning and kind of just helps defining out any of those permitted uses and then figure out how much we want to charge them for a business license?
Yes, I would say so. And worth noting that some of these dates they're not set in stone by any means either. If we have the ability to update that bylaw sooner, we certainly will attempt to do so.
Thank you.
Thank you. No other questions of clarification, then look for a motion. Councilor Routley, second by Councilor Manuel.
I guess for clarity, it's as presented.
Thank you. Recommendation number 2 there. Yes, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. 300 left to deal with. It's good to have job security. Okay, council, moving on to new business. We have the item that was brought forward as a late item. It's Mr. Denigar. Sir.
I just did that so that it would be the last thing we talked about. Best for last, right?
Perfect.
No, I just time management. I'm letting it slowly load on my screen so I can see what I'm talking about. There we go. So yeah, looking for direction from council on potential UBCM meetings. I know it was a couple of meetings ago. We sort of just threw out ideas. I jotted those down as best I could because they were coming fast and furious. I have included them in a little table on page 2 of the report. I'll kind of take on what I heard. You'll note that one of them I wasn't quite even sure on. So there's an opportunity for council to discuss these and provide direction to go ahead with working to flesh these out and put in the submission for a meeting request, or to drop it if it's not something that feels appropriate at this time, or add new things to it. Note that there's also the second part of the resolution regarding an invitation from Sun Peaks Mountain Resort Municipality to join them and to Fino for a meeting that they're going to be requesting, and they'll let through that request that they submit, they'll note that a number of municipalities are coming. There may be others that would join as well, but we're trying to basically make it really clear to the ministries in the province that this is a shared common concern and not just something specific to any one municipality. So how that morphs out, we don't know, but looking for direction from council if you want to be involved in that, I would recommend that we do so. So yeah, if you want to jump into it and talk about the various things I've thrown out there and provide any guidance, that'd be great. Also note that I'm suggesting if you compare this to last year's report when this came to council, I'm also added in this little bit saying it's led by a council member. The thought on that is to have somebody really hold the reins on each one of these topics to make sure that we're coming in very strategically into those meetings, and as well to carry that thread forward through and for the following year for those who are coming back to council. But just make this a practice here that it's so often that we get excited, we have the meeting, we wait for the letter from the ministry, and then it sort of becomes dormant, and then we start to talk about it again in a year. And I think we need to really just, like, everyone's going to take some ownership and going, this is important to me. I'm going to continue working with staff and the ministries and keep this moving forward so that it's not another surprise meeting a year from now when the ministry's saying, oh yeah, weren't you here last year? What have you done since? How have you worked with us since then? So that's a suggestion. It's up to you whether you want to do that. But it would be requested that you decide as a council who would be leading each one of these. And of course, staff will provide as much support as possible.
Okay, with that, council, there's a list there on page 2. Anything got missed or anything comments on we made on the list, Councilor Cooper?
I thought we talked about mosquito control as well. When we talked about briefly about legislation, what we're doing, but we didn't know who we should talk to regarding that legislation. And I saw that it wasn't on the list, so I wasn't sure if we had clarity or we didn't know per se who we should be approaching or how. we would proceed with some form of bot mosquito dump.
You got the lingo, Mr. Deniger.
Probably either one of us could speak to this
Oh.
based on the last meeting we had. And remember earlier in this meeting, I mentioned that we had a meeting with the local drone company. We learned in that meeting that the federal government just updated legislation related to that a week ago. So that sets the stage for the province to catch up with that. And I have heard through Director Cathcart that in her communications with the province that they're actually on board with that now. They were quite resistant to it before, and now they're on board. So I think with that federal change and the mood from the province that I've heard is that it's likely to happen regardless. And I think the pressure's there from industry. So I don't know if a minister's meeting would really add any value to that moving forward.
If I may, I'm going to take a bit of a counterpoint in that I think there's value in getting onto a list saying that we want to have a meeting with them, along with the CSRD doing that, again, showing the need for that. If in fact the CSRD does get that support for their meeting, or one or the other or both get it, if both get it, we could cancel one and we could tag team with the other party. So I suggest that we kind of follow suit with the CSRD and put in that application for meeting with the appropriate parties, whoever they may be, and that we evaluate it once we see what happens down the road. Just a different approach. Any contrary or any thoughts about that? Councillor Guil?
Well, I'd be happy to take the emergency management one on.
Surprise, surprise. Thank you. Thank you. So does that mean we'll get you to stick around a year later? So we have identified Councillor Guil for the emergency management, which would be the third one. Okay.
I was just
Councillor
gonna
Cooper.
say, I'll do real property division.
Okay. So we've got two champions identified. Councillor Rowley.
Thank you. Ever the financial policy walk. I'm happy to take that piece. And that one is specific for the resort development. So happy to champion that.
Thank you for that. Real probably we got that one covered off. I'll speak up for the community forest. Councillor Manuel.
Tourism related infrastructure.
So that. So which one is? So which one are you referencing? I'm sorry. It's kind of a broad statement. The first one. Okay. The impacts, needs, and potential new funding models and sources. Councillor Guil.
I would join you on the Honorable Brenda Bailey one.
Okay. Councillor Cooper.
Is the intent that we all attend all of them anyways, and you're just asking for a lead speaker? So we would all be reading and going to these as well. That's the intent.
Clarification, Mr. Dennegar.
I was expecting that, yes, everyone attend who's interested in the meeting. It's just that somebody be the cook in the kitchen.
Okay.
Yeah, and even in terms of who actually speaks to it, that could still be different. Like someone may do the background prep work, but if somebody's really eager to speak to it, then absolutely. Just didn't want it left to the,
And because it'll probably be easy, that we'll tag team with the CSD, I'll do the mosquito one. Any gaps? Mrs. Seville?
I just wanted to suggest some clarity around the tourism related infrastructure projects, just because of the mayor's work with the RMI mayors. If that, for background knowledge, was my only consideration there.
Yes, I can do that. And that fits, and thank you for that. So is there any gaps within our list now? Is there any other suggestions of subject matters that we may have missed or meetings that we may want to pursue?
Oh, I haven't chosen it, except, are you gonna do the tourism?
Yeah.
Okay, is there anything left?
Thank you for that. Councillor Hamburg?
Yes, Your Worship. I know I won't be there, so I can't take this on, but the issue of that parking lot up on Highway 1 for highway closures, I think that needs to be kept under the fire, feet under the fire for that one.
So
That's,
MOTT at the intersection of Highway 95 and the Trans-Canada Highway, that lot?
yeah. I mean, from it turns into a parking lot every time the highway closes. Fire trucks can't get through, ambulances have trouble getting through. It's just that property belongs to the province. There's no property acquisition needed. It's just a matter of getting the work done.
Thank you for that. And albeit we did, I believe, received an update from MOTT staff probably in the last 6-8 months, if I remember correctly. I think there's value in taking it to the next level, is just making them know that it's a priority. At the same time, I will acknowledge that there is massive work going on at Revelstoke at the intersection of whatever highway that is to the cusp and just to the north of that intersection of the TCH.
It's just,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's lots of work going on there. So yeah, let's keep it on the radar. Councillor Hamburg, maybe you may not be attending UBCM, but you can possibly be doing the champion and some of the work with staff on that file. Would you be willing to do that?
Sure. I can help out with that any way they can.
Perfect. That's much appreciated. We don't want you to get off too easy.
No, that's okay.
Thank you. Any other subject matters? Councillor Rutley?
Thank you. Not another subject matter, but just confirming kind of next step. So with the deadline for submissions being next week, the end of next week, and kind of as outlined within the CAO's report, is the expectation just a brief blurb from those councillors responsible for specific issues to put together a bit of a blurb for the submission, and then once we hear back, there's the broader submission.
Yeah, so I'll email out to each of you sort of the guidelines and the word count. There's actually like fields you have to fill in submissions. So I'll give you the word counts for those and any ideas to help get you going on it. The deadline is Wednesday the 24th at I think 6 o'clock. So we've got about a week.
June 24th?
Yes.
That's for that initial.
For just the initial
Yeah.
submission, I think it totals maximum about 300 words, and you don't have to fill in the full space. It can just be bullet points of what we are talking about.
Okay, thank you for that, and thank you for asking the question of clarification. Is there anything else staff need from us with regards to this? Just looking back. So we've got a recommendation of a motion there. We've got the list. So we have the motion up above, the list attached, and the addition of the Sun Peaks RMI stuff. Looking for a mover of that. Councillor Routley, seconded. Councillor Manuel. Any further discussion? Seeing here none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you for that. With that, we go on to question period, an opportunity for those in the gallery, both virtual and in person, to ask questions of any of the subject matters on the agenda today. I'm going to go to the virtual gallery. Any questions on any of the items on the agenda today? It's great to see staff and partners there attending. Thank you for your attendance. Councillor Manuel?
It's good to see that the local newspaper editor is attending in virtually as opposed to looking at the recording.
I appreciate that, and that's one of the partners I was actually speaking about. Okay, with that, we're gonna recess to a closed meeting, and that gonna put forward a motion that the meeting be recessed and that council convenes a meeting closed to the public pursuant to section 91C and 92BI of the community charter for council to deal with matters relating to the following. Firstly, labor relations or other employee relations. Secondly, the consideration of information received and held in confidence relating to negotiations between the municipality and a provincial government or the federal government or both, or between a provincial government or the federal government or both and a third party. We covered off all the bases, so moved. Moved by Councilor Riley, second by Councilor Manuel. All those in favor? Opposed? So we are now recessed and we will take a
Meeting.
actually a motion to reconvene the regular open council meeting. Looking for mover, Councilor Guio, seconded by Councilor Manuel. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. And now reports from the closed meeting, Mr. Denegar.
The resolution that was passed and closed is that council authorize an operating budget amendment of the 2026-20 financial plan for an inclusion of an additional $62,000 contracted professional planning assistance as described in the proposal from Blue Rock Planning, Inc.
Looking for a mover of that motion? Oh, no, that's right. Sorry, my apologies. Okay. So with that, I want to thank council for their deep engagement in both the open meeting and the closed meeting, and also for your patience and some of the longer council reports. Councilor Routley,
Just moving item 17 for adjournment.
motion to adjourn. Councilor Routley, second by Councilor Guio. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.